Hi everyone, welcome to Africa Agenda. My name is Senaiet Mesgun, and I'm joined by Heather Newell, who will be helping me interview Jane Oppenheim with the ZATA Project. Thank you both for joining me today.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.
And Jane, can you tell us a little bit about the ZATA Project and what it stands for?
Sure. Thanks very much for having me. The ZATA Project is the Zimbabwe AIDS Treatment Assistance Project, and it was started in 2004, so we're celebrating our 10th anniversary. It was started with the help of faculty from the University of Colorado Medical School. When we went to Zimbabwe, we saw the beautiful artwork, and we also saw, because they were AIDS experts that I went with, the terrible scourge of AIDS, HIV, in Africa and in Zimbabwe specifically, where one out of every four people had the AIDS virus. So we decided, because the artwork was so beautiful, why don't we bring it back to the United States and sell it, and then with the proceeds support the AIDS Research Center at the University of Zimbabwe. They had very little money. They did not have PEPFAR at the time, and that was mainly because of political issues in the country. So we decided we'll be their PEPFAR, and we'll try to help them out to buy medications. Since then, PEPFAR has gone to that country, thank goodness. They've gotten the details worked out, and we've moved on to other AIDS projects at the University of Zimbabwe. So it's a really natural progression. We were very happy that PEPFAR finally made it to Zimbabwe. But during the past 10 years, we have raised about $300,000. And the money has all gone after a few expenses, but we have no paid staff to running the organization, and it has all gone to Zimbabwe. And we're very proud of that fact, because we think when people donate or buy the artwork we bring back, they shouldn't have to pay salaries also. So they don't pay anybody's salary. Every dime goes back to Zimbabwe.
Thank you.
Jane, going off of that, I kind of want to touch on, I know that you went to Zimbabwe in 2003, and then the nature of this project, it seems that it integrates art and science and development, and it seems to really connect these women to people back here. So touching on your experience in Zimbabwe in 2003, can you talk about some of the experiences you've had seeing women connect with people back in the United States and vice versa? Have people in the United States been able to understand who these artists are, what their stories are, and then in the same way, do the artists understand what they're able to share to people back in the United States?
Yeah, I think you've hit on something very important. First of all, there are men and women artists, of course. Now, I'm very prejudiced, and I like some of the women artists, but that's just me. The men are highly talented. Many of them have shown in Belgium and Holland, and in the when the country was not undergoing such economic seizures, they were actually making up it up there, and they were in galleries up there in Western Europe. So it's been exciting, since we have very little tourism in Zimbabwe, and most of it is Victoria Falls, not Harare, which is their capital, and that's where most of the artists live that we sponsor. It's so exciting to bring their work to the United States, because they wouldn't ordinarily be able to show it anywhere. And so the fact is, we pay them directly. We pay them what they ask. We don't bargain with them. And we actually are like marketing agents. So we feel very proud of that, being an art project. When we first started this project, we thought there's a lot of programs out there begging for money, including ones that help Africa. Africa is a very unique continent. and all the countries have their own talents. So we wanted to show the talent. We wanted to bring talent. We wanted to market that and show it to the United States, as opposed to, please give us $10, people have AIDS in Africa. Because you'll get these answers from people saying, well, people have AIDS here too. And we have children issues, we have women issues in the United States, why Africa? But we're putting that artwork in people's homes. And when they see it, they understand the country a little more, even if they haven't been to Zimbabwe, what a wonderfully rich country it is, despite the headlines about the politics.
And so is it okay? I have another question, actually. Is that all right? Going off of that, what Africa Agenda is about is promoting positive African stories here in Colorado, here in the United States, and it seems like the ZATA Project is actively doing that by putting taking something not so great and making something beautiful of it. I know that you're not the doctor yourself, but do you recall any particularly powerful stories from doctors that have gone over there about AIDS and what is happening on the ground and how it's improving maybe in Zimbabwe, and then what information or I guess how that's influencing where the project is going in the future?
Well, the thing is, we only have our next generations. We can't always look back and say, oh my goodness, this happened. Yes, AIDS was very frightening, and it decimated many families. But we have to think about the younger generation, and that's kind of exciting for ZATA to play to sort of be able to steer young people, especially the next generation of AIDS physicians. So we've started to turn our eyes to how can we help fund their research projects. So we have two very interesting, one is an adolescents AIDS project, and one is a pulmonary project. And so three doctors, I think they're all under 35, we have to help them in that way, because you can't always look backwards. It is getting better. PEPFAR's there. When you give AIDS drugs early enough, you do inhibit transmission. So you do not see as high a percentage of the population getting AIDS each year. It's abating. But there's still some problems we don't even see in the United States, comorbidities with AIDS, that we've kind of made AIDS a chronic disease, and we don't see the comorbidities we had in the late 90s and early 2000s. So, but they still see them. Now, some of that is their health care is not quite up to our standards, and the economic situation will result in comorbidities, like Kaposi sarcoma, which they still have and we don't. But they do have younger, we'd call them children, getting AIDS. Either they got it through their parents or they acquired it when they became adolescents. And so we're pretty excited about this project, where what we do is we put a request for proposal out, and people compete, and we have 3 top faculty at the University of California, San Diego, and University of Colorado, and University of Zimbabwe judging the grant applications.
Together.
Yeah, they do it together. They do it mostly by email, but if they're at a professional meeting, they review it. And they give our board, who are not doctors, I have to emphasize that, recommendations on how to fund it. So we'll raise the funds, and they'll give us scientific advice, and they'll look at the results. And so they're like, I think of them as a mini NIH, you know, so we're pretty excited about that. So to look back, yes, things were bad, things are getting better, and we'd like to play a small part in the future.
And how do you feel about the U.S. government, and how have they played a big role in helping the Zimbabwe people get access to these drugs?
Well, I'm not sure of the exact year PEPFAR started. Might have started in 2004. And it was President Bush who spearheaded this. And so the U.S. realized you can't say, oh, this country's over there, or these people have problems, but let's just think about the U.S. The planet is so small now that if you don't really take an aggressive stand, it was interesting. I've seen military reports that if you let entire countries become failed states, I mean, if everyone dies, or not everyone, but a large percentage, you have problems on the whole planet. And so I really have to give a huge amount of credit to President Bush and his advisors of recognizing the need for PEPFAR. And I'd say the U.S. there's other groups, there's the WHO, there's the Global Health Initiative. It's not just PEPFAR. I mean, everyone's participated who could participate financially, but they really were the moral crusaders on this, because in the 80s, the government did not talk about AIDS, and it's really a tragedy, and really one of the U.S.'s darkest hours. But I think people have learned that, they've become more, not compassionate, evolved in thinking about people who aren't exactly like you. That doesn't mean that it won't affect you down the road. I think it's self-interest as well as compassion.
And so now that the world has kind of grown into a more globalized, interconnected place, and the media, people have easier access to different types of media, and recently a lot of coverage has been given to the Ebola crisis. How do you think has that hindered some of the awareness towards the AIDS programs?
I really don't think so. I think that it's a crisis and hopefully it will be of the moment. I know there's a couple countries that still have problems in Africa, but several of them, through very strict public health measures, have actually stopped it. And the whole publicity about a few people coming from Africa to the U.S. was, we love to do a lot of fear-mongering, and that's how people watch the news. So I'm crossing my fingers they can get their arms around Ebola, but the numbers of AIDS patients in Africa certainly is multiple times the problem of Ebola. Ebola is not in southern Africa. It's in northern Africa in a few countries. And I really think the PEPFAR program being as strong as it is, and health education programs now in place, I think Ebola hopefully will be, remember the Ebola crisis. AIDS is going to be with us for a lot longer than the Ebola crisis, I believe. So.
As part of the ZATA Project, in how you work with the artists, is there a lot of education opportunities? Is there programs that you have facilitated or your program has facilitated to help people not only have more awareness but understand what they can do in the future to prevent AIDS?
Well, we're not a health education program per se, but we have funded the salaries of social workers, pharmacists, and other staff at the clinic. The doctors are usually funded through another stream like the Global Initiative, but we have funded people who are on the front lines educating patients. However, I would say whenever we have an auction, we have been in many cities. We've been in Phoenix and San Francisco and San Diego, Vancouver, Toronto. Whenever we go, we do publicity for the auction, and that's when we raise awareness about the issues and what we're trying to achieve through ZATA, but it raises the issue that AIDS is still an issue in Zimbabwe. And that's all we can do. Because I've been on, we go on talk shows, we do what we can. It's wherever, whoever will take us. Not everybody wants to hear about it. But, it's pretty exciting to think that if this is on the website of your organization, there'll be some people who get their consciousness raised. And that's all we can do. We're not huge. But I do think being in business 10 years, you tend to get the word out. It doesn't happen all at once. You find that out. You find out that eventually people come to you asking about ZATA, as opposed to you always having to market it.
So what new projects